Hello and welcome to this pattern recognition video featuring advanced level patterns from games that were rated 1800 to 2000. So these are random. I'll try and do 10 puzzles and you can pause at any time if you need to think longer. So with pattern recognition, if you haven't watched these before, you basically just want to solve a set of tactical puzzles, and it's good to go over them more than once. That way you don't just completely forget the tactics and patterns that you see. All right, so let's get started. It looks like a rook has just moved over to e1, creating, doubling the rooks, creating a battery on the open file. Maybe they could threaten to move down here and try and attack this rook, and then the king. So, what can we do here? You want to look at checks, captures, and threats. Checks first, and it doesn't look like we have any way to check their king here. So then captures, you want to look at anything unprotected. So we see this knight here is unprotected, and it looks like we could just capture that. And if we count up the material, it looks like they have 2 extra pawns. So once we take this knight, we'll be ahead. They're 2 pawns that they captured from us for their knight, so that's the equivalent of 1 pawn advantage. So what do we do then? It looks like we can just capture that knight and go ahead. If they try and generate some kind of attack here, we have to deal with that. We could just drop our rook back here, and protect this rook if they take it. So that's a possibility. Looks like that'll work. Maybe that's the best thing to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this. And then I don't really see much they can do after that. We just go up in material. Okay, now that they do that, we can just drop back with our rook and defend this rook. Okay, so, all right, that wasn't, too difficult for you, hopefully. Basically, it was kind of a tactic where you grab the material and then you have to make sure you defend properly for their counterattack. And then now, what do they have? We're just ahead that knight versus their 2 pawns. All right, well, on to puzzle number 2. Oh, wow. Their king is just stuck out here in the open. Man, yeah, that's pretty crazy. So we should be able to take advantage of that somehow, hopefully. What is this king even doing? So whenever a king is out in the open like that, you definitely want to look at all the checks that are possible. So what can we do? And whenever a king is limited on where they can go, where they're almost in a stalemated position, which I think they are here, you really want to look to see if there's a way to check them, and get that checkmate. So our knight is covered by this knight. So, the king can't go to any of these squares because of his own pieces and our knight. This knight is covering here. The rook is covering all of these squares, and the pawn and bishop are covering here. So the king is in a stalemated position. It can't go anywhere. The question is, how can we get a check in here? How do we deliver a check? If we move this knight here, it blocks the path of the rook, so the king could start running. Also, it takes away our coverage of that square D3, and the king could even try and run up that way. So, I'm thinking we have to go after the king somehow to try and go for a win. Now, it looks like they're threatening to capture this bishop and check us, so that's something maybe to keep an eye on. All right, material-wise, we have 4 pawns. Our opponent has 5, so they're up by a pawn. And the rest of the material is even, I believe. So, what can we do? I mean, we have this bishop under attack and it's pinned to our king, but is there a way to deliver a check, and figure out how to trap this king? What if we use our rooks? The king can't move, so what if we go here? And if that rook is captured, then we could go there, rook to e4, and I believe that's checkmate. All right, so I'm going to go with that. Check and mate. All right, hopefully you found that one. Let's move on. That was kind of crazy with that king just roaming out there in the center of the board. All right, puzzle number 3. The knight has jumped forward. What kind of move is this? Well, I guess he's putting pressure on the knight, which is pinned to our queen. He's also attacking our bishop, maybe trying to get rid of our bishop pair. What do we have? Well, if we look at checks first, we could just go there, delivering a check, but they could block that with 2 different possibilities, here or here. So maybe, and pause if you need to think longer, but maybe we just let them take our queen, we capture this knight, and then if they take our queen, well, now we can go here and we check their king, and the only way they can stop that, remember when a king is in check, the 3 options are capture, block, or run from the checking piece. So they can't capture, they can't run anywhere, so they would have to block with their queen. Then we could take, they take, and then we take their bishop down here. So that's what I'm going to go with. All right, so now check, capture, and then we can grab this. And now, after the dust settles and everything is cleared out here, it looks like we have 3 minor pieces and they only have 2. And as far as pawns, we're even. So we just go up a piece. All right, on to puzzle number 4. What do we, oh, wow. Okay, so here they're trying to attack both of our rooks, and pick off a rook, but we can just take them with our knight. They would recapture, but then what? Maybe we go after this, and then we're threatening to move up here, and then try and push our pawn. So maybe we try something like that, but do we even have time to do all that? I don't know. I'm thinking we need to take that. They take. Then we capture this pawn. And our threat is to go here, forcing the king to... Oh, and the king can't even move there because of... Oh, excuse me. Because of this pawn covering. So, we have to look at checks. So once we go here, and they take, and then we take... They could check us. If we move, maybe up here, they could check us again. And it would give them time to take this. But like I said, we could check, the king would have to move, and then we could try and promote this pawn. So that's what I'm going to go with. Capture, capture. Oh, okay, so that's something different. But it doesn't matter now because now we still... Oh, no, they can take... Okay, this blocked the coverage of this pawn, so the king can take that now. Huh. Well, what now? Because now if we go and take that and they take, we go here, that's no longer protected. Oh, but if they take the pawn, we grab their rook. So, maybe we just do that. And then we go here and we grab their rook. And, our king can stop their passed pawn. We have extra rooks, so that should easily be winning. All right, on to puzzle number 5. What do we have here? Okay, the queen has just checked our king. So we have to deal with that. Remember, when your king is in check, you have 3 options: capture the checking piece, block the attacking piece or the checking piece, or run from it. So if we block, they can just take because they'll be backed up by the knight and it would be a checkmate. So we don't want to do that. Capture, there's no way to capture that. So the king has to run. So what we need to figure out is, where can we run? Wow, that this king will be safe. All right, well, if we go here, the queen can check us. So, man, it looks like we're just going to be running around here. We probably don't want to go to E1 because they could check us on H1 and then pick off our rook over here. So the only other option is G1. So I think we're forced to do that. G1. All right, but once we do that, once we go here, what if they check us again? Well, then we'll be able to block. All right, so that'll work. All right, so now we can block. But if we do that, we don't have this mate threat here, which, this is a great little pattern. You have the bishop aiming at the mating square. If we sacrifice the queen, they capture. Our rook would be able to come up here and deliver the mate. So what do we do now? I think we have to block. I think we have to do that. Have to block there. All right, so now they just take. Wow. Okay, so I would imagine you would want to just go up material there. All right, that's kind of interesting. To keep this moving along, I'm not going to pull up the analysis. I'll just keep moving here so the video doesn't stretch out too long. My last 2 videos were like 45 minutes or more, and I had the rating level set higher, like 2,000 to 3,000. I got kind of frustrated, so today I backed off. And let me know in the comments if you're getting tired of all of these pattern recognition, puzzle solving videos. Do you want to see something else? Is there, do you have any requests? Feel free to put something in the comments and let me know if you want to see something different. And don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. All right, let's move on here for the second half. Puzzle number 6 here. So we have 5 more to go. What did they do here? Okay, they bring the rook forward to protect the other rook, which we were attacking. So with our move, we definitely want to look at checks first. For us against them, of course. So, yeah, we could go there, but they would capture, and if we capture, they grab our bishop, so that doesn't look so good. We do have this check, so maybe that's something to consider. And if we could move this bishop, that might be something to think about as well. If that bishop were out of the way, then we'd have a rook and a queen attacking here. So, maybe we could add another attacker like this. But then I guess they could push that forward. And, do we want to exchange here with these two rooks? Maybe we need to bring this rook over somewhere and get it in on the action. And also, if we sacrifice our rook here and they capture, there's this threat of them taking this pawn and checking our king. Okay, so what do we need to do here? I mean, a forcing move would be to just take that and then they're forced to recapture. Oh, and then maybe we check up here and we'll be forking the king and the rook. So maybe that's something to think about. That seems like a good move there. I think I'm going to go with that. Then we just grab this rook. So now we're just ahead by that extra rook. All right, on to puzzle number 7. I hope you're doing well with these puzzles so far, and your chess hopefully has been improving. Let me know in the comments if pattern recognition, puzzle solving has helped you, or sometimes you'll get worse at chess before you get better. That happens a lot, especially if you're trying to learn something new, and it takes a while for your brain, I guess, to absorb the information and process it. So, don't be discouraged if you get worse at something new before you start improving again. All right, what do we have here? A check on our king. And, it's not... Well, okay, remember, when you're in check, capture, block, or run. We can't capture that rook at all. So we don't want to run because if we move over, then they can grab this rook with the queen, especially if we go to g2, then it'll be with check. So I'm thinking we have to block with this knight. But if we do that, let's see, we have a mate threat here. But we're in check, so if we move, we don't want to go there. As I said, they could capture with a check. So if we go here, what checks do they have? Oh, then they could go there, but then we capture and we grab a rook on that. But then they could grab the knight. Okay, let's look at the material count here. We have 3 pawns. Our opponent has 5, so they're up 2 pawns. We both have 3 minor pieces, 2 rooks and a queen. So, wow, we're down material. What can we do here? And if we look at checks, captures, and threats, well, we can't really look at all those first because we're in check and we have to deal with that. Do we want to run and keep this knight here? But even if we do that, they can just pick that knight off. Although, if they do that, with picking the knight off with their bishop, we can capture with check, and then we're threatening a mate on the next move. They would make... all right. So... I don't know. This looks too passive. If we just block... then I guess they could, take this, threaten to swing over here, and, oh wait, their queen is under attack as well. So they would probably take that with the queen or take that if our king runs. So if we go there, what do they do then? Oh, we still have the mate threat. But then they could check this way with their rook. But if they do that, then we just capture and we go ahead in material. So I think we go there. Okay, that's what they wanted. Now we can just do that. And if they take our knight, we just capture with the king. So now we're just up material. How much? 3 minor piece. We just have the extra rook. All right, on to puzzle number 8. Here we go. The pawn is pushed forward. What is that achieving? So it's always good to ask yourself, what is the purpose behind your opponent's last move? What are they trying to achieve? What changed in the position? I mean, what's different now? Now that pawn has moved, there's also a discovered attack on our bishop, and we would not be able to recapture because of this pin of the pawn to our king. So that looks pretty dangerous. So maybe, do we go ahead and just capture first? If we do that, then they could threaten to push this, but if they do that, then we can push forward. I don't know. It's starting to look a little dangerous there. All right. We could ignore the threat of this attack, maybe with a counter attack. That's something you always want to keep an eye on. Okay, so if we go with our system of asking, what did our opponent's move do? Well, obviously there's an attack here. Then we could look at the material count to see if we're ahead or behind in material to help us decide if we should be trading material or if we have to go for the win. So we have 4, 6 pawns. Our opponent has, 5, 6 as well. So material is even. So now we want to look at checks, captures, and threats. Checks first, as they are the most forcing. So no checks possible. Captures, so you want to look at anything unprotected. This rook is unprotected, so maybe we could go there and attack it, but like I said, they would just go here, threatening a mate and protecting their other rook, getting rid of that problem. So what else? So a threat. Maybe we go there, taking this pawn, and then if they go here threatening the mate, we could go check, forcing the king to move, or the queen, and either way, we get an attack on the queen there. All right, I think we do that. So we go there, we deliver the check, then we pin the queen to the king. So now we can just take the queen, and then we can go after this pawn as well. So I think that's what we need to do. We just capture, the king would capture, and let's see, we would be ahead in material. Also, we could start picking off pawns. We go here. Or even better, well, I don't know if it's better. Yeah, maybe it is better. We go there with a check after he takes the rook back, and then we go here and capture. And then we're threatening the next pawn as well. All right, 2 more problems to go. Okay, what do we have here? Okay, the queen is I guess kind of threatening this pawn to check us, but we're covering that with our queen. At the same time, they're attacking our queen, threatening to capture and then double our pawns, and kind of that's probably not so good. All right, if we look at checks, well, if we go here, we'll just be captured. Same with here. At least here we could take the rook, pulling the king over. Then we could go there with check. But do we have any follow-up? Because we are down in material here. We're down 2 minor pieces. So what can we even do? I don't know. I'm thinking that looks like the only thing with some kind of counterplay, but is the follow-up good enough? Because once we go there, this is unprotected. They could capture with check. Of course, we could move over. We won't be able to block because we're probably going to use this rook. So if we take, they take, and then we capture this pawn with check, the king has 2 options. To move to e8 or g8. If he goes to g8, well, then he'll just be mated because we bring our other rook up to f7 after we check on f8. So he'll probably run to the center. So we go there, he captures. We capture with check. If he runs to the center, can we deliver another check, forcing him to move down? If we check again, I think we have this pawn that could check him if he tries to go there. So I think that's what we need to do. We go there, we check. All right, we check again, and I think it'll be mate. We just go there, and then a pawn mate, which, that's often overlooked when the pawns are helping in a mating attack. All right, we're on to the final problem, puzzle number 10. Looks like we just had a capture there, so maybe the obvious move is to recapture, then threaten a checkmate here. But can we win? Oh, because they'll just take that knight and get rid of our threat. Well, we do have this bishop that could deliver a check if the king tries to run to the g file. So we have to keep that in mind as well. So if we capture, threaten mate on h2, and they take our knight, then we could move queen back where it was to h4, delivering a check, and the king runs here. Then we check. All right, then we check with the bishop. If the king runs here, then we just mate. I mean, they'll block here first probably, so we'll have to take that. All right, I think that works. So take. All right, so they decide to give up their queen first. You always want to be aware of possible checks. So, thinking we have to take that queen. All right, so they're not even going to show us what could have happened. So, we take the queen. Now they are forced to take our knight. Then we would check them here. Oh, they could block. I mean, anyway, now we're up a queen, so I guess it doesn't matter as much. But if they wouldn't have given up their queen, they take our knight. then I guess we could, like I said, move queen to h4, delivering a check. They could block with their bishop, but then we take on h3 with another check. They have to move over to g1, and we would be able to deliver a check here. They would block. We check again by capturing. And then if their king ends up here, that king wouldn't even be able to move there because by then our queen would be here. But, now we're just chasing them around with extra queen. All right, I hope you did well on these. As I said, feel free to leave comments. Let me know if you're getting tired of these puzzle videos and you want me to do something else. Maybe in tomorrow's video, I'll play some Blitz games and we can look at those. All right, feel free to leave comments, like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.